I thought I was losing my mind when my furniture kept changing, then I set up cameras and caught my parents red-handed. Hi everyone! Today's story will blow your mind, but really quick, if you enjoy this content, hit that subscribe button. Channel's been a bit quiet lately, and your support keeps it all going. Let's jump in. I'm a 33-year-old guy living in a decent one-bedroom apartment that I've been renting for about 3 years. I work full-time as a software engineer, pretty standard 9 to 5 schedule, and I live alone. My parents live about 20 minutes away, and yes, they have a spare key for emergencies, something I'm seriously reconsidering right now. Over the past month, I've been noticing weird changes in my apartment. Small things at first. My coffee table, which was a dark wood finish, somehow became this lighter oak piece. I stared at it for 10 minutes one evening, convinced I was losing my mind. I called my buddy Kevin to ask if he remembered what my coffee table looked like, and he confirmed it was definitely darker before. When I mentioned it to my mom during our weekly phone call, she just laughed and said I probably mixed it up with furniture from my old place. Then my kitchen chairs started changing. I had these black metal ones with gray cushions, nothing fancy, but they worked. Last week, I came home to find white wooden chairs with floral cushions. Floral. I'm a 33-year-old man who works in tech and plays guitar in his spare time. When exactly would I have chosen floral cushions? The bathroom towels were next. My plain navy blue towels were replaced with this soft pink set with little decorative borders. I stood in my bathroom holding these towels, wondering if I was having some kind of breakdown. I don't remember buying pink towels. I would never buy pink towels. But there they were, neatly folded in my linen closet. Yesterday was the final straw. I came home to find my entire living room had been rearranged. My black leather couch was gone, replaced by this beige fabric sectional with way too many throw pillows. My entertainment center, which was a sleek black unit, had been swapped for some rustic farmhouse-style piece that looked like it belonged in a country magazine. I called my parents immediately. My dad acted confused and suggested maybe my landlord had been doing maintenance. My mom wondered if I'd been sleep shopping online and forgetting about it. Sleep shopping. For furniture that I would never, ever choose. The thing is, all of this new furniture is nice. It's good quality, well-coordinated, and clearly expensive. But it's not me. It's like someone is slowly transforming my apartment into a space for someone else entirely. Someone who likes soft colors, farmhouse aesthetics, and apparently has very different taste than I do. I've checked my bank statements obsessively. No furniture purchases. No mysterious charges. Nothing. I've looked through my emails, my Amazon account, everywhere. There's no record of me buying any of this stuff. My girlfriend Sarah thinks I'm pranking her, but I swear on everything I hold dear that I have no idea what's happening. She came over last night and kept asking when I'd redecorated, and I just stood there like an idiot trying to explain that I hadn't. The weirdest part? Everything is always perfectly arranged when I get home. It's not like someone just dumped new furniture in my apartment. It's thoughtfully placed, styled even. My books are still on the shelves, my personal items are still there, but everything else is slowly changing. I'm starting to wonder if I need to see a doctor. Memory issues run in my family, and maybe I'm having some kind of early onset something. But Kevin confirmed the changes he's seen, and Sarah definitely notices the differences too. Has anyone experienced anything like this? I feel like I'm living in some weird version of Gaslight meets HGTV. I'm considering changing my locks, but what if I really am just forgetting that I bought all this stuff? What if there's something seriously wrong with me? I don't know what to do anymore. Any advice would be appreciated. Update 1. Holy shit, you guys were right about the cameras. First off, thank you to everyone who suggested I install security cameras instead of immediately assuming I was having a mental breakdown. Special thanks to the user who recommended the discreet ones that look like phone chargers. Those were perfect. I installed 3 cameras last Friday. One in the living room disguised as a phone charger, one in the bedroom that looks like a digital clock, and one in the kitchen hidden in what appears to be a small speaker. I felt ridiculous doing it, half convinced I was about to capture footage of myself sleep decorating or something equally embarrassing. Wednesday afternoon changed everything. I was at work, in the middle of debugging some code around 2 p.m., when I got a motion alert on my phone. I opened the app expecting to see my cat, who doesn't exist, or maybe a maintenance worker I'd forgotten about. Instead, I watched my parents walk into my apartment like they owned the place. My mom was carrying what looked like a catalog or magazine, pointing at things and talking to my dad. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but her body language was very much, this goes here, that goes there. My dad was taking measurements of my current bookshelf with an actual tape measure. They spent 45 minutes in my apartment. 45 minutes. They went through every room, my mom taking photos of various items with her phone, my dad writing things down in a notebook. At one point, my mom sat on my couch, the new beige one, and spread out what I now realize were fabric samples across the coffee table. I saved all the footage and confronted them that evening. Showed up at their house with my laptop, ready for answers. The conversation that followed was surreal. When I played the video, my mom's first reaction wasn't shame or surprise. It was annoyance that I'd spied on them. My dad asked how much the cameras cost because they looked pretty professional. Here's where it gets weird, you guys. They weren't even trying to hide what they were doing once I caught them. My mom explained it like she was describing a perfectly normal family activity. Apparently, my sister Jessica is moving back to town in 2 months after her divorce, and she's going to be staying with me for a while, until she gets back on her feet. I repeat, my sister is moving in with me. News to me. According to my parents, they've been gradually replacing my bachelor pad furniture with things that would be more suitable for a woman, and create a welcoming environment for Jessica during her difficult transition. My mom said my black leather couch was too masculine, and the new sectional would be better for sister bonding time. When I pointed out that I never agreed to Jessica moving in, my mom looked at me like I'd said something absurd. She's your sister, James. Family helps family. You have a 1-bedroom apartment, and she needs a place to stay. It's perfect. I explained that no, it's not perfect, because it's my apartment, and I never agreed to share it with anyone. My dad jumped in with statistics about how expensive rent is and how Jessica's ex-husband left her in a difficult financial situation. My mom added that Jessica has always admired my apartment's potential and has such good taste that she could really help me fix the place up. The most infuriating part? They acted like they were doing me a favor. My mom kept saying things like, Jessica will help with groceries, and you'll love having family around again, and it'll be just like when you were kids sharing a room. I asked about the money. The furniture they've been swapping isn't cheap. My dad casually mentioned that they've been investing in Jessica's future, and wanted to make sure she had nice things around her during her recovery. They've apparently spent thousands of dollars on this redecorating project. When I told them Jessica couldn't move in, that I hadn't agreed to it, and that they needed to return my original furniture, my mom started crying. Actual tears. She said I was being selfish and abandoning family when Jessica needed support the most. My dad said he was disappointed in how I was handling the situation and that a real man would step up for his sister. I left without resolving anything, but I made 2 things very clear. Jessica is not moving into my apartment, and they are never to enter my space again without permission. I'm changing the locks this weekend. But here's what's eating at me. Has anyone talked to Jessica about this plan? I haven't spoken to her since Christmas, and back then she mentioned she was staying with a friend after the divorce. Does she even know about this furniture swap operation? Does she expect to move in with me? I'm planning to call her this weekend after I get the locks changed. This whole situation is insane, but I need to know if she's in on it or if she's as clueless as I was. More updates to follow, I'm sure. Update 2, 3 months later. Locks changed, boundaries set, and my parents are not handling it well. It's been 3 months since I caught my parents in their redecorating scheme, and I figured it was time for an update since several people have been messaging me asking how things turned out. First, the immediate aftermath. I changed the locks that same weekend and didn't give my parents a new key. This caused what my mother described as the worst betrayal in family history. She called me 17 times that first day. 17. I know because I screenshot the call log before blocking her number temporarily. My dad showed up at my apartment the following Tuesday with a locksmith, apparently convinced he could just have the locks changed back. The locksmith, to his credit, asked to see my lease and ID before doing anything. When my dad couldn't provide proof he lived there, the guy left. Dad spent another hour sitting in his car outside my building, calling my work phone and leaving increasingly frustrated voicemails. The furniture situation became a whole other nightmare. My parents insisted they'd disposed of my original pieces since they were replacing them with better quality items. I knew this was probably a lie, but proving it was another matter. I ended up having to play hardball. I told them they had 1 week to return my original furniture or I'd file a police report for theft and breaking and entering. Suddenly, my old furniture reappeared. Funny how that worked. They dropped everything off while I was at work, leaving it in the hallway outside my apartment like the world's most passive-aggressive delivery. My neighbors were not amused. Mrs. Chen from 4B left me a note asking if I was moving out, because there's a couch blocking the fire exit. As for Jessica, I did call her that weekend. That conversation deserves its own post, but the short version is that she was just as shocked as I was. She had no idea about the furniture swapping, no idea our parents were planning for her to move in with me, and was mortified when I told her what had been happening. She'd been staying with her college friend Amanda and had just signed a lease on her own place across town. The family dynamics since then have been tense. My parents went through several stages of dealing with their failed plan. First was denial. They kept insisting Jessica would come around and realize my apartment was the better option. Then anger. I was ungrateful, selfish, and clearly didn't understand what family meant. Then bargaining. Maybe Jessica could just stay weekends, or use my place as a backup, or store some of her things there. When I held firm on all boundaries, they moved into what I can only describe as the guilt offensive. Every family gathering became an opportunity to remind me of everything they'd sacrificed for me growing up. My mom would make comments like, "I remember when James used to care about family," while passing the potatoes. My dad started telling stories about how close Jessica and I were as children, with heavy emphasis on how I used to protect her. The breaking point came at my cousin Michael's wedding last month. My mom had apparently told several relatives that I was going through a difficult phase, and not speaking to family. Multiple aunts and uncles approached me asking if everything was okay and whether I needed support getting through whatever I was dealing with. I realized my parents were actively rewriting the narrative, making me the problem instead of acknowledging their boundary violations. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I told the truth. All of it. To anyone who asked. The reactions were mixed but revealing. My Aunt Patricia was horrified and told me she'd had similar issues with my parents overstepping with her kids. My Uncle David laughed and said it sounded exactly like something my mom would do. My grandmother, my mom's own mother, pulled me aside and said she wasn't surprised, and that my mom had always had control issues. But the most surprising reaction came from my cousin Sarah, who told me she'd always felt bad for me growing up because she could see how differently my parents treated Jessica and me. She said the whole family had noticed, but no one said anything because it wasn't their place. Learning that other people had observed this pattern for years was both validating and infuriating. It confirmed that I wasn't imagining the favoritism, but it also made me wonder why no one had ever spoken up. My parents are now in the sulking phase. They attend family events but barely speak to me beyond polite greetings. My mom makes a point of asking everyone except me how they're doing. My dad talks about sports with other family members while pointedly ignoring me. Jessica and I, on the other hand, have actually started talking more. She's been great about backing me up when our parents try to relitigate the apartment situation. She's also shared some of her own stories about their interference in her life, which has been eye-opening. The furniture in my apartment is back to my original setup, plus a few new pieces I've actually chosen myself. My black leather couch has never looked better to me. I've kept the security cameras, because trust but verify, right? I don't regret standing my ground, but I won't lie, it's been emotionally exhausting. 33 years of family dynamics don't change overnight, and sometimes I catch myself wondering if I should have just gone along with their plan to keep the peace. But then I remember coming home to find my living room completely rearranged without my permission, and I know I made the right choice. Boundaries aren't negotiable, even with family. Especially with family. Update 3, 6 months later. The conversation that changed everything. I wasn't planning to post another update, but something happened last week that completely shifted my understanding of this whole situation. I think you guys need to hear this. Jessica called me last Sunday evening, which wasn't unusual. We'd been talking more regularly since the furniture incident. But something in her voice was different. She sounded tired and frustrated in a way that reminded me of how I'd felt during those weeks when I thought I was losing my mind. "James," she said, "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me." She went on to tell me about her new apartment. She'd been living there for about 4 months now, and strange things had been happening. Small things at first, her bathroom towels replaced with different ones, kitchen items swapped out for better versions, her throw pillows changed to ones that coordinated better with her couch. Sound familiar? Jessica had been experiencing the exact same thing I had, but she'd been attributing it to stress from her divorce and maybe mixing up her belongings during the move. Our parents had a key to her place for emergencies, just like they'd had with mine. But last week, she came home early from work with a migraine and caught Mom in her apartment, rearranging her bookshelf and swapping out picture frames. She had this whole explanation ready, Jessica told me. Said she was helping me create a more positive environment, and that some of my things were reminders of negative experiences that I should move past. The conversation that followed between Jessica and our parents was apparently even more revealing than mine had been. When Jessica demanded to know what gave them the right to change her belongings, Mom launched into a detailed explanation of how she'd been managing the family's living situations for years. Here's the part that made my blood run cold. This wasn't new behavior. According to our mother, she'd been doing this for years, with both of us, and we just never noticed before. She told Jessica about times she'd swapped out my college dorm decorations because they were too juvenile. She talked about changing Jessica's apartment setup when she was first married because it didn't flow well for entertaining. She mentioned updating both our wardrobes over the years by taking clothes that were unflattering and replacing them with better options. Jessica and I spent 3 hours on the phone that night, comparing experiences. Remember how I sometimes couldn't find favorite shirts or jackets? Remember how Jessica's apartment always seemed to have different accessories whenever I visited? We'd both attributed these things to normal forgetfulness or misplacing items. Our mother had been orchestrating our living spaces for years, so gradually and confidently that we'd never questioned it. The furniture swap at my place wasn't an isolated incident of overreach. It was the natural escalation of a pattern that had been going on since we were teenagers. The only reason we noticed this time was because she'd gotten too ambitious, changing too much too quickly. "James," Jessica said, "I don't think the plan was ever really for me to move in with you." She'd been thinking about it since catching Mom in her apartment, and she had a theory. Our parents had been using the idea of Jessica moving in with me as cover for their real goal, completely redecorating both our apartments according to Mom's vision. Jessica thought they would have kept the temporary stay going just long enough to finish both places, then come up with some reason why Jessica needed to move back to her own apartment. It would have been the perfect scheme. They'd have 2 perfectly decorated apartments that met their standards, and we'd have been so focused on the supposed living arrangement that we wouldn't have questioned the gradual changes to our spaces. The more we talked, the more we realized how deep this went. Our mother had opinions about everything in our lives: our clothes, our furniture, our food choices, even our friends. And she'd been acting on those opinions for years, just subtly enough that we'd adapted without realizing what was happening. Jessica made a decision that night. She called our parents and told them she was changing her locks too. She also demanded they return anything they'd taken from her apartment and provide a list of everything they'd changed over the years. The reaction was explosive. Dad called me the next morning, furious that I had poisoned Jessica against them and turned her paranoid. Mom sent a series of text messages that started with hurt confusion and escalated to accusations that we were ganging up on them and being ungrateful for everything they'd done to help us. But here's the thing: Jessica and I weren't backing down this time. For the first time in our lives, we were presenting a united front against our parents' manipulation. We've decided to meet with them together this weekend. Not to negotiate or compromise, but to clearly establish what our relationship with them will look like going forward. No more keys to our apartments. No more, surprise, help with our living situations. No more decisions made about our lives without our input. I know some people will say we're being too harsh, that they're our parents and they love us and we're just trying to help. But here's what I've learned over the past 6 months. Love without respect isn't really love at all. It's control wearing a prettier mask. Jessica said something on that phone call that's been stuck in my head ever since. How many of our preferences aren't actually our preferences? How many of our choices have been influenced by their changes over the years? I've been thinking about that a lot. Looking around my apartment now, with my original furniture back, I feel more like myself than I have in years. But I can't help wondering what else I've adapted to without realizing it. The strangest part of all this? Jessica and I have gotten closer than we've been since we were kids. Turns out when you're not competing for parental approval or being played against each other, siblings can actually be allies. We're both going into this weekend's conversation with clear boundaries and united expectations. Our parents can choose to respect our autonomy and have a healthy relationship with us, or they can choose to keep trying to control us and have a very limited relationship with us. For the first time in my life, I'm not worried about their reaction. Jessica and I have each other's backs, and that feels more powerful than any guilt trip they could throw our way. I'll update after the conversation, but honestly, I'm feeling optimistic. Not because I think they'll change, leopards and spots and all that, but because Jessica and I have changed. We see the pattern now, and we're not going to ignore it anymore. Sometimes the best family relationships are the ones you choose to rebuild on your own terms. Final update: the conversation that freed us both. I promised an update after our family meeting, and while I'm not sure anyone expected it to go the way it did, I wanted to share how this all resolved. Jessica and I met at a coffee shop beforehand to go over our talking points one more time. We decided to present a united front and not let our parents divide us or redirect the conversation. We each had a list of non-negotiable boundaries, and we'd agreed that if they couldn't accept those boundaries, we'd both be limiting contact significantly. The meeting was at their house, in the same living room where I'd confronted them about the cameras months ago. Mom had clearly prepared for this conversation. She had tissues strategically placed, family photos prominently displayed, and she'd made my childhood favorite cookies. Classic emotional manipulation setup. Dad started by saying he was glad we were all finally sitting down like adults to work through this misunderstanding. He used the word misunderstanding 4 times in his opening statement. Jessica jumped in first, which surprised me. She's always been more conflict avoidant than I am, but something had shifted in her since discovering the extent of their interference. She calmly laid out everything we discovered, the years of subtle changes, the pattern of boundary violations, the coordinated furniture swap scheme. Mom's response was immediate and predictable: tears. She talked about how much she loved us, how she'd only ever wanted what was best for us, how she couldn't understand why we were attacking her for caring. But here's where something unexpected happened. Dad, instead of jumping to Mom's defense like he usually did, got quiet. Really quiet. He sat there listening to Jessica list specific incidents over the years, and his expression kept changing. When Jessica finished, he looked at Mom and asked, "Linda, did you really take that painting from her bedroom last year?" Mom's composure cracked just a little. "It didn't match anything else in the room, Richard. It was just sitting there clashing with everything." "But it was hers," Dad said slowly. "She bought it herself." What followed was the most honest conversation our family has ever had. Dad, it turned out, hadn't been fully aware of the extent of Mom's redecorating activities. He knew she sometimes helped us organize, or picked up a few things for our places, but he hadn't realized the systematic nature of it. As we kept talking, Dad's expression went from confusion to concern to something that looked like horror. When Jessica mentioned the clothes that had mysteriously disappeared over the years, Dad turned to Mom and said, "That's why James asked about his college sweatshirt last Christmas. You told me he'd lost it." The facade started crumbling then. Mom tried to maintain that everything she'd done was out of love and wanting us to have nice things, but even she seemed to realize how it sounded when laid out chronologically. Then Dad asked the question that changed everything: "Linda, how would you feel if your mother had been doing this to you?" The silence that followed was deafening. Mom's relationship with her own mother had been strained for years, partly because Grandma had a habit of criticizing Mom's choices and trying to fix things in Mom's house when she visited. "That's completely different," Mom said, but her voice lacked conviction. "How?" Dad asked. "How is it different?" Jessica and I just sat there watching our father realize that his wife had been systematically violating their adult children's autonomy for years. It was like watching someone solve a puzzle in real time. The conversation that followed wasn't easy, but it was real. Dad listened to our boundaries and agreed to them immediately. Mom took longer to come around, but when Dad started backing us up, her resistance finally broke down. She did apologize, eventually. Not the performative apology she'd tried earlier, but a real one where she acknowledged that she'd been wrong and that our feelings about it were valid. "We've established new rules: no keys to our apartments, no entering our spaces without explicit permission, no taking or changing our belongings without asking, and no making plans for our lives without including us in the decision-making." It's been 2 months since that conversation, and things have been different. Better, mostly. Mom still has moments where she starts to offer unsolicited advice about our decorating choices or lifestyle decisions, but Dad has gotten really good at redirecting her. "Linda, they didn't ask for suggestions," has become his catchphrase. Jessica and I have stayed close through all of this. We text regularly, hang out without our parents, and have built our own relationship separate from family dynamics. It's weird having a sister who's actually on my team for the first time in our adult lives. The funniest part of all this? My apartment has never felt more like home. I've added some new pieces over the past few months, things I actually chose, that actually reflect my taste. Every time I look at my black leather couch or my dark wood coffee table, I'm reminded that I have control over my own space. Jessica has been redecorating her place too, deliberately choosing things that Mom would probably hate. She bought this amazing abstract painting that's full of bold colors and weird shapes. Mom hasn't said anything about it, but I caught her looking at it with this pained expression during their last visit. Some of you have asked whether I think our parents will really change long-term, and honestly, I don't know. Mom still has controlling tendencies, and old habits die hard. But the difference now is that Jessica and I are watching for it, we have each other's backs, and we're not afraid to call it out. Dad has actually become an unexpected ally in all this. He started noticing Mom's controlling behaviors in other contexts and gently redirecting her. It's like he finally sees the pattern he'd been missing for years. Looking back, I think the furniture swap scheme was actually the best thing that could have happened to us. If Mom had stuck to her gradual approach, we might never have realized what was going on. But she got greedy, made too big a move too fast, and accidentally exposed years of boundary violations. The relationship with our parents isn't perfect now, but it's honest. We're all adults choosing to be in each other's lives on terms we've agreed to, rather than operating under some inherited family dynamic that none of us really examined. And honestly, I like them better this way. When Mom offers decorating advice now, she asks permission first. When Dad wants to help with something, he checks if I actually want help. It's a small change, but it makes all the difference. Jessica and I have talked about writing a book, how our mother's interior design obsession accidentally taught us about boundaries. We probably won't actually do it, but the title makes us laugh. For anyone dealing with similar family boundary issues, here's what I learned. Sometimes you have to risk the relationship to save it. Standing up to your family is scary, especially when you've been conditioned to avoid conflict. But the alternative, living your entire life according to someone else's preferences, is scarier. Also, having allies makes everything easier. If Jessica and I had tried to handle this separately, our parents probably would have been able to divide and conquer us. But presenting a united front made it impossible for them to play us against each other. My apartment is finally, completely mine. The security cameras are gone. I don't need them anymore. My locks are changed and staying that way. And every piece of furniture in this place is something I chose, something that reflects who I am rather than who someone else thinks I should be. It's a small victory in the grand scheme of things, but it feels huge to me. I'm 33 years old, and for the first time in my life, I feel like I have complete autonomy over my own space. And my black leather couch. Still the most comfortable place in the world to watch Netflix on a Sunday afternoon. Thanks to everyone who followed this journey and offered support along the way. Sometimes you need strangers on the internet to confirm that yes, your situation is as weird as you think it is, and no, you're not overreacting. Family is complicated, but boundaries make everything simpler.